A long time ago, I was an enemy of homeschool. Don't know why. I only knew two homeschoolers in my life, and to say that I knew them is kind of a stretch. One was my parents lived on this kind of off the beaten path trail or road. And to get to their house, you'd go to a corner and you'd turn a sharp corner. Well, on the corner house, hiding in the bushes, was this odd little girl. And I say that she was odd in the most respectful way possible. She was always unkempt. She was always dirty. She was always hiding in the bushes. And then she'd peek out as you would drive by. And all I knew about her was that she was a homeschooler. So in my mind, I'm like, yeah, no, I don't want my kids to be odd. The only other homeschooler that I knew was a homeschool family, and the husband and wife were in, oh, let's just say a less than ideal relationship. And so those were the two people that I had in my mind when I thought homeschool. And I just did not want that kind of a journey. I think it was about the time that our oldest was, gosh, he was in kindergarten. My husband said, Becky, I want us to try homeschooling. And I thought, no. I was young and I was stubborn. And I thought, there is no way that we are going to homeschool our kids because I don't want to do it. And he's lovingly and wisely said, Becky, just try it for a year. And if we hate it at the end of the year, or if it's a train wreck, he's young. We'll just do something different next year. So, what am I doing? Right now, I thought it would be fun. And I'm hoping that maybe you will come on and join me on some future date. So, I'm going to say all this at the beginning for anybody that's going to be watching on a replay. Would you let me interview you and have a conversation about what got you into homeschooling and what has your homeschool journey been like along the way? I talk, and all you need to do is say me, and then I'll reach out to you later. I talk to homeschoolers all the time, and I'm so fascinated by how they ended up doing this homeschool thing. Before you leave, make sure you find in the descriptions the Breaking the Chains of Curriculum resource. It's free for you. So I'm going to kick this off with just our story. If you have questions or if you have comments while I'm live, I will look at them later and I will answer. But there I was, kind of stiff-necked. I didn't want to homeschool. Our oldest was in first grade, which means I had an infant at the time because there's 5 years between our first two kids. And my husband had, I always say he tricked me into homeschooling because he knows me better than I know myself. He knew that I would fall in love with the journey of homeschooling. And he's like, Becky, just try it for a year. Well, there I was sitting with, so he was in first grade when we first came home to homeschool. And the moment that I saw the twinkle go in his eyes, and I realized, oh, if he was at school, I would miss this. It was that moment that I was hooked into homeschooling. And we never looked back. We homeschooled 25 years. So we started with two kids. And then obviously we didn't figure out how things worked until later, but then we had our third and we were so excited, and then our fourth and we were so excited, and then our fifth, we're like, whoa. I found myself sitting around the table outnumbered and outmatched by these really smart kids. And I've been amazed at the journey of learning alongside the kids. So as I'm just sharing our own story, I really felt like I was almost a frenemy of homeschooling in the beginning. I really thought homeschool was, I just I just was against it, and I don't really have valid reasons except for the 2 people that I had in my collective memory of what a homeschool was supposed what a homeschooler was, but I was really dead set against it. I did not believe that, parents could educate their kids. I really didn't. I didn't have a teaching degree. I wasn't I didn't have all of this experience behind me that could prove that I could educate my kids. And yet there I was in the kitchen, surrounded by my own children with the weight and the pressure of having their future and their education right in my hands. And I remember the panic of it, the overwhelm of it. There were some turning points in our homeschool journey that have set us toward the trajectory, or it set us toward the trajectory of where we ended up. So fast forward to today, all 5 of our kids have launched outside of the homeschool. We have 2 kids that are married, we have 1, and we are strategically planting sailor boys all over the United States. So we have sailors in Colorado, sailors in Idaho, a sailor in Florida, a sailor in San Diego, and we still have a sailor at home. And I think about the fact that here I am at this leg of the journey where the kids have gotten past the homeschool stage and yet still have my hands mentoring and loving on homeschoolers of all different ages and stages. And it's incredible to me the way that the Lord just kind of wove together everything that happened in our lives to equip equip my husband and I to be in this position today, to be able to breathe encouragement over people, right? We've been there, done that. So in this conversation, I just wanted to share some of the turning points or the major, and this is unscripted. I didn't write it down an outline. I probably should have. And if you join me in a future one where I get to interview you, I would kind of pre-feed you some of the questions that I'd ask you so that you wouldn't be stuttery like I am right now. But I want to share some of the major turning points. So at first, completely against homeschooling. And then suddenly homeschooling. Now, our first 3 years of homeschool, we went through what do you call it? A co-op school. Now, we've done every kind of homeschooling that there is, right? And there is no such thing as one size fits all in homeschool. I've done public school where they send you everything in the box. We've been a part of charter schools, umbrella schools, uh, friends where everybody buys curriculum and then we swap curriculum every year. I've written my own curriculum and we've done complete unschooling different years. So I've done it all, which is why I always say there's no such thing as one size fits all in homeschool, because I had to try it all. But back in the beginning, we started our homeschool journey at a co-op school. Our church decided that they were going to create a homeschool umbrella, and the parents would be the ones teaching in the classroom. This was, I think, by God's grace and design, because I really felt like, okay, I can teach kindergarten and first grade, but those middle school years freak me out. Okay, just confession, those middle school boys specifically, they kind of scared me. And I thought, gosh, there's no way I can teach fifth, sixth, seventh grade. So where did God put me in the co-op school? My son was in first grade. I got placed in fifth grade, right into my panic zone. But I co-taught with a brilliant educator who I learned so much from her when we co-taught. She not only was a certified teacher, which made me feel better, and I don't know why, but it just made me feel better. But she was a brilliant educator. She was also the kind of person that would read aloud stories and at night would make these fantastic displays for us to add in the classrooms and calligraphy and all this stuff. So I spent 3 years at this co-op school teaching fifth grade. And I got an eye-opening while I was teaching in fifth grade. So small classrooms, very small. I had anywhere from 3 to I think 7 or 8 students total. And it was this beautifully quiet, crazy, loving environment. I loved these kids. I had taught them in Sunday school, most of them, and I knew their families. So it was this very family oriented place. But I got my first taste of overwhelm in curriculum when the director of the school handed us all of the boxes of materials and said, plan it and do it. And I was like, what do you mean? Plan it and do it? You mean I have to figure out what I'm teaching? I just like revelation, completely and totally overwhelmed that I had to map out the school. So anyway, those 3 years at the charter school or the co-op school, excuse me again, I got excited and I swallowed my excitement. That umbrella school taught me that the first year of teaching material, you're like fumbling through it. You're not familiar with it. You don't know what you're doing. You don't know what's going to connect with the kids. The second year, it's familiar to you. So you go, oh, I remember this. I hated this lesson. I love that lesson. We're going to spend more time there. And the third year, you just kind of nestle in. You're like, oh, we can do this activity and that activity. But that's not how homeschool works. Homeschool for me was this unbelievable shock that I had to reinvent the wheel every day, every week, every year. And there was never the opportunity at first to get familiar with the material. So there was this constant feeling of, I don't really know what I'm doing. I don't know how to teach that concept. I don't know much about this time period in history. I don't know how to approach this topic. So there was that season in homeschooling where just kind of getting my feet wet, seeing about curriculum. So we were in the church co-op first. From there, I was expecting baby number 4. And when I'm pregnant, I can't walk. So I was in excruciating pain. We had 3 kids and I was expecting number 4, and we decided I can't walk. I can't physically do this. So we're going to go home. I'm going to teach at home. So our first experience of full homeschool, kids at the table, we did one of those K-12 type years where it's the public school. They send you everything. I mean, everything except ink and a printer, I think. We got finger paints. We got all the crafts, all the books, all the activities, computer lesson plans, all done for you with all of these different extension activities. And it was too much. And my oldest son hated it. He hated being completely home away from his friends. He hated doing public school type work at the kitchen table. He hated it. So while he was in 5th grade, see, God had a plan. I taught 5th grade for 3 years, and then I merged into 5th grade. Now, an aside, 5th grade's not scary. I think that in my trajectory, in our story, that 5th grade was going to be a make or break year for Bekki Sayler because my oldest son struggled in 5th grade. And I believe that by God's grace, he allowed me to be familiar with 5th grade for 3 years before teaching my own son at home. Not everybody needs that. I'm a slow learner, so God gave me a special boot camp, if you will. So here we are, and I'm just sharing our homeschool story, hoping that I can start doing this regularly, interviewing other homeschool families. And all you need to do if you're willing to join me is just say me and I'll reach out to you. But so we started at the co-op school, then we did public school in a box. From there, there was this group of women. Oh, the cool girls club where they always have everything together and it's always like, wow, you just look through the window and you think, I want to hang out with them. There was this group of women that were homeschoolers. They were all teachers, which doesn't matter, but they were former teachers and they were very wonderful women. And I wanted to be connected with them in some way, but I didn't interact with them very often. And fast forward, things happened in life where suddenly I was invited to a Friday play group. Through one of our dear friends, she invited me to come with her. And I got to experience Friday play group with this group of women that I had been spying on for, gosh, probably a year, maybe two. And what Friday play date was, eventually between us, there were five of us, five women. We had 25 kids literally between us. We had a lot of kids, 20, 25 kids. Friday play group was people would come, they would bring a snack. The kids would have a set of activities that they were doing where the older kids were in charge of the younger kids. It was beautiful. Even though they were young, they were like 6th grade and under. They had these activities that they would do. They would be taught a lesson by one of the homeschool moms. In this case, it was a beautiful art history lesson followed by actual painting around her table. It was this beautiful experience. And this Friday play group, somehow I found myself there. And then by God's grace again, I was included from that point forward in that short season, probably 2 years long, of Friday play group. And so we started at the church co-op, then we did public school in a box. Then I ended up in this co-op as I was trying to figure out, well, what are we going to do next? And I say if I ever say it's we. My husband and I homeschooled our kids, even though I was the teacher. He definitely had his fingers in everything that we were doing. But I was in that in-between phase. I didn't like what we were doing at home. I had no idea what we wanted to do. But here I was in Friday play group. The ability to glean wisdom from people that have gone before you in homeschool is priceless. If you don't have a mentor, here's what you're looking for. You're looking for a homeschool mom, dad, family that is further down the road than you and has a life that you would want to pattern yours after in some way. Either it's because they're so filled with joy. Their kids are amazing, messy, but amazing. You love the fruit on their trees. That's what my husband's always saying. Be a fruit inspector. You're looking for people that you like what they say, you like the way that they live their life, and you feel like, wow, if I just could follow them, I'll get to where I'm going faster, making less mistakes. And that's what that season of homeschool for me was, sitting around the table with these women that not only were years down the road in homeschool beyond where I was, but they also had a wealth of homemaking skills. Okay, here's a little vulnerability. At one point, these women are extremely loving and compassionate, and they help each other. I threw my back out one year, and my husband called one of these women. And she's like, I can't come help Bekki, but I'll send my friend. So she sent another one of the women who I had never really worked really tightly with before. This woman, my husband calls her she lived 20 minutes away. Within 20 minutes, she's at my door. She has her 3 children. She has food to make me dinner. And she proceeded to take care of me that entire day because I could not get out of bed. She braided my hair. She did, because it was all over in my face. She braided my hair and I couldn't move my arms. She did my laundry. She took down one of my plastic plants and she dusted my plastic plant. I had never dusted this plant ever. And she just cleaned it just because she could. She took care of my house as if she was a professional, like what do you call those? Like the housemaids. Amazing woman. And the sound in my house was peace and joy. I couldn't believe it. Like, how is this stranger able to walk into my house and just run my entire household without judgment, right? My house was filled with clutter. I had laundry coming out of my ears, my kids It was crazy. So I learned in that season what it means to um, link together with people, to pattern your life after others, and the beauty of pouring into another family, pouring into someone that is not quite as far as you. Fast forward a couple years, this same gal, my husband asked her to help me organize. Bless his heart. Thank you, honey. I was so glad to have people know that I didn't have any organizational skills. She came to my house for 2 weeks because okay, if you ever want help from somebody, if you ever need help with something, find somebody that loves what you need, loves it. If you want to learn how to bake bread, ask somebody that loves to bake bread. If you want to learn more about homeschooling, ask somebody that loves homeschooling. I needed help with organization, and this gal loved organization. In her spare time, she'd go to office supply stores and all that stuff. She took up the baton of helping me organize my house. And for 2 solid weeks, she came to my house and we dumped my house out. She would have me grab something and label it. It's a pen. And I'd put it in a bin, office supplies. Inside of 2 weeks, we had my entire house cleaned, organized, binned. It was beautiful. It was beautiful what I was able to accomplish with somebody that knew what they were doing. So the funny story is that she was showing me, we were talking through kitchen appliances and like, what do we need on the counter? What do we not need on the counter? She was just walking side by side with me, training me on how to look at a space and to decide what's necessary, what's clutter, right? We were going through this thing. Well, she touches my mixer and my mixer's a mess. I don't know how old I was. I was 30 something and I cleaned it, but I didn't clean it. And so she's standing there, she touches my mixer, realizes that it's dirty, and then she simply grabs a rag and starts wiping it down, explaining to me that the reason that it's good to wipe the mixer down is so that it's ready the next time that you want to use it. You don't have to clean it first. And this stuck in my head so much because she had the opportunity to judge me and belittle me because my mixer was messy, but she just trained me in that moment. I gleaned so much about homeschooling hanging around these women that had actually gone before me and learned how to do these things. It's a beautiful journey. So, co-op school, public school in a box, Friday play date, which morphed into, hey, if we all buy, I don't know if you know Sunlight curriculum, it's expensive. It's like $400 or $500 for a year worth of stuff. And the 5 of us each bought one of the sets. And then for the next few years, we just passed them back and forth. It was beautiful. So everybody invested $500-ish, and then everybody had curriculum to pull from. So sharing curriculum. So part of my homeschool journey was overcoming my objections first, because I was completely against it. Then understanding that there's work involved to figure out what you're going to teach your kids. Then realizing I wasn't going to get the same level of exposure to material that a classroom teacher would get. I'm not going to be, if you teach the same subject for 5, 10, 20 years, you become an expert in it. You don't have to think about it. Well, in homeschool, it's not like that. So I realized that, okay, I'm going to have to be quick on my feet. Then from these women, I learned that you could have a peaceful home and organize your home with help if needed in a way that you actually give yourself more time in your day. I spent the 2 weeks with my friend. We organized the house. And a year later, I remember calling her saying, guess what I'm doing? She's like, I have no idea. And I said, I'm dusting. And I just called to say thank you, because if you hadn't helped me a year ago organize my house and declutter and get things in place, I never would have gotten to the place where I could dust, like all of these life skills. So we went from trading curriculum, then we joined a charter school, and the charter school was amazing. This was really my first step into taking the reins of educating our 5 boys the way that made sense to me, the way that made sense to my husband, embracing the freedom of homeschool through this charter school. Because I was paired with a governing teacher. The first day I met her, she was covered in bruises and scuffs, and she was using like crutches or something. I'm like, what happened? She's like, well, my son got a scooter and I thought I would try the scooter and it didn't go so well. And she had crashed and burned. It was just like she was loving and wonderful and kind, but she sometimes she had some special circumstances going on in there. But when we were part of the charter school, the kids went to class 1 or 2 days a week, and then the rest of the time was they were at home with me. That charter school had like a chunk of money that they would give you that you could then buy your own curriculum, or you could use it to put the kids in sports or activities. And then they had this beautiful curriculum room where you could shop that curriculum room and use your budget, and you'd get like twice the amount for the, like it was 50% off. So you got more for your buck by shopping their shelves. My season at that school taught me a bunch of things. The first one was I hate curriculum. I just don't like it when people tell me what I have to teach my own children. It's like, no, I don't want to do that. I want to do what they want to do, and I want to make it fun and fruitful. And thank the Lord, my governing teacher, my overseeing teacher was gracious, and she could see that what the boys were doing, they were moving forward academically. So I started to get my feet wet in taking the reins of homeschool right there in the charter school. But I also learned that having the kids in classes sometimes is the best thing that you can do for them. Not, they weren't unschooled, right? We were homeschooling, but they got to do some pretty fun things that I couldn't do at home because they were a part of a classroom, dissecting things, gymnastics, all kinds of stuff, all kinds of stuff. It was a super eye-opening experience to me. So I was probably 5 years into homeschool at the time ish, 4 or 5 years. And it was revolutionary. It was eye-opening to see that I could still be a homeschooler and follow curriculum. I could still be a homeschooler and have my kids go to a class and be taught by somebody else. I could still be a homeschooler and do what worked for my family, right? That made sense to me. And it was also, it's just beautiful and fun. So this co-op school, right at this time, as we're moving through the school, we were there for a few years. The kids loved their co-op school. I started to lean into having the kids try the standardized tests. They liked to make patterns out of the bubbles, but I had them do the tests for the experience of sitting and doing something that they hated. And I would have the discussion with them that this is not testing what you know, this is for the school to get funding. And it went right over their head. And eventually I stopped having them do that. But what I can tell you is what I learned in that is that my children did not test well. They did not show up on the scale, on the side of the scale that you wanted them to be on. They were beneath the averages. They were the last to complete their tests. It wasn't embarrassing, but it was enlightening. And it really showed me that you can't standardize test a kid that is being taught in a way that they learn best, because there's no standardized test for uniquely and wonderfully made, right? There's only a standardized test if you want to see if everybody learns the same boring thing. Okay, that's not what my kids were doing. That's probably not what your kids are doing. So I learned just how to kind of navigate the whole standardized test thing. So again, what I'm doing here, if you hop in the middle, is just kind of sharing our homeschool journey. It is so helpful when you're new in homeschool, or if you're looking over the fence and thinking, can I educate my kids? Is it possible? Or if you were like me, a total skeptic, you're like, no, I'm not going to educate my kids. I think that's dumb. Depending on where you are, it's really helpful to hear the stories from somebody else's life, the real stories, right? Not the beautiful plasticky posts and all those things, but this is real life homeschool. 5 kids, quite a journey. So we're getting there. We're almost there. From the charter school, one of the people that I was blessed to glean wisdom from was this teacher's teacher. Now, go back to the co-op school. When our church formed the co-op school, they brought in an educational expert, and his expertise was teaching educators and cutting the fat out of things. He would say things like, show me you know, and then you can go. He was all about, you don't have kids do the same things over and over and over. The brain doesn't like to be bored, and a bored brain gets into trouble. He's like, your job as an educator is to inspire. Their job as students is to perspire. So we inspire, they perspire. So here I am back at my oldest son is getting ready to go into high school. That same educator whom saved my children from boring lectures because of all the things I gleaned from him. It's so thankful to this guy. He teamed with people and designed and built a high school, a beautifully cross-curricular high school where if you were studying something in history, that's what you wrote about in English. It was beautiful. If there was a mathematical crossover, you learned that too. If there were scientific crossovers, you learned that too. It was beautiful, beautiful charter school. It's the first time that I heard the words dual enrollment, although I still didn't understand what that meant. So our oldest son went to this charter school, thrived. Oh my goodness, thrived. And then halfway through high school, we moved. We moved from everything that we knew, our entire support system, and we picked up and we moved hundreds of miles away to a tiny little town. So the charter school in San Diego only had 200 kids. Only had 200 kids. This big, massive place, tiny little school. Very cross-curricular, very hands-on, beautifully orchestrated. We moved to this small little town that had 1,200 kids at the high school. And this is one of those strategic mistakes that I made that if I could go back, I would undo it. My husband wanted us to have our son go to the charter school with the younger boys. Well, I mistakenly looked at the high school and I thought they have more options for him. He wants to do something that at the time he wanted to be a mechanical engineer, and they had a huge STEM project at the high school. So we sent him, my husband yielded. Oh, I wish I was the one that yielded. My oldest son went to this high school, and then the kids and I went to this other charter school where we were there for like 6 years. And that's where, so he survived high school by the skin of his teeth. It was, we should have pulled him. We didn't. And there was a lot of drama at the school. It just was not about a good place. Later, somebody was trying to convince us to send our kids or the next kids to the high school. And they're like, but there's so many opportunities there. There's so much. There's so many resources. And I'm like, it doesn't matter how good the food is at a buffet. If the company's bad, then you just don't need to be there. And that's what happened for our oldest son. Is he made it. He's fine. He's good. He made it. But it was a train wreck for him. The younger boys and I were at this other charter school for years. And it was at that school that I met, the magic school bus? Well, I met and was coached and trained by Miss Frizzle herself from the magic school bus. That's when I learned truly how to lean into hands-on projects and hands-on learning and cross-curricular planning. She called it thematic learning. I call it like a wagon wheel where you put a topic in the middle and then you connect all the different topics to or subjects to that topic, and all immersive, beautiful, fun way to homeschool. That school is also where I got started coaching other homeschoolers. So thinking on the timeline, maybe 9 years into homeschooling, the kids were thriving. They were doing these amazing projects. They were learning and they were thriving and they were growing. And I wasn't stressed and frazzled. So people were asking me, like, what do you do? So I was coaching people on how to plan and map out a year. There was one year that I got to work with the person in charge of 8th grade history for the school. And we sat down for a few days that summer and mapped out how to teach 8th grade history and making it more hands-on and fun. But you have to understand, she was a certified teacher with decades of experience, and I was an uncertified homeschool mom. And I was able to help do that. It was a fun season. It's also this season that Common Core came out, especially in California. And there was such an uproar about Common Core. Don't leave me. Let me explain what my mentality on Common Core was. So here I am at a charter school during this season, and Common Core comes down. So they have this special panel of people come in, and I was invited to be a parent on this panel to review the Common Core standards that were coming down and to see how it would impact us as homeschoolers. And I remember reading the Common Core standards and shaking my head going, these were written by a homeschool mom. Because it was beautiful. It was cross-curricular. It was literature-led. It was experience-led. Have the kids fall in love with something and then sprinkle the information into it. And I stepped back. I'm like, what is the problem? Why is it that people are so against Common Core? Well, it turns out that Common Core is not the problem. The problem is that the standards were written like a homeschooler would write them, but curriculum wasn't written yet. The Common Core standards came out first, and before they were implemented, all of the people that sell curriculum went and created all this crazy stuff and labeled it Common Core. The standards are beautiful. The curriculum, train wreck. It just absolute train wreck. They didn't know what they were doing. They just stamped it. It's like sprinkling a little bit of organic wheat in something and then calling this pile of garbage organic. That's what happened. So anyway, Common Core came down. So here we are thematically learning, we're thematically teaching, the kids are thriving, they're doing amazing, and we move again. Now we're in Washington State. And when we moved to Washington State, we started in a charter school and then we broke off completely. See, it took me about 20 years before I was able to go, okay, I got this. I can do this. I can teach the kids the way that they learn best. I'm a slow learner. Okay. So this should give you hope because I can help you catapult into confidence way faster than I did. But it took me like 20 years to be able to say, nope, we're going to do this at home. And we actually homeschooled the younger three all the way through high school. Whereas the first one went to a public high school, first a charter school, then an actual public school. The second one, we homeschooled through, he went through a charter school and then merged into the community college and finished with a dual enrollment. And then the bottom three, we homeschooled up until they merged into the community college. And all four of the younger kids went on to earn their associate's degrees with their high school diploma or really close to it, right? It just depended on which kid we're talking about. But four of the kids got their associate's degrees as they were graduating high school. It was a big deal, so what type season for other people. In from my perspective, looking back, I can tell you clearly that curriculum did not make my kids excellent students. It didn't. What makes them excellent students is that they were taught to think, they were taught to plan, and they were taught how to ask for help when they got stuck. It's a beautiful thing. It sets them apart from their peers because they're able to, when they hit a hurdle, they don't melt. When they hit a challenge, they don't panic. They start looking around for who is it that's going to help them bake the bread or tune the bicycle or pass the physics exam, right? They know how to get the help that they need. When I look back at that day that I panicked over curriculum and I'm like, I cannot do this. This is too hard. I can't, this is no way. When I look back at that, my husband helped us establish our master homeschool goals, which I've already said are to share our faith with our kids, make sure they master their basic math facts, marinate them in excellent literature so that they fall in love with story, and then help them become excellent communicators by the time they graduate high school. And when I look back through our homeschool journey, that's exactly what we focused on. When we'd pick up an assignment, we would look at it through the lens of the goals. Does this fit our master homeschool goals? No. Should we do it anyway? Does it look like fun? Would it be engaging? Okay. Doesn't fit? Doesn't look interesting? Gone. Everything that we did, we always would circle back and we'd look through our homeschool goals. Does it fit? Does it fit? Does it fit? Standing in my youngest son's dorm, getting ready to drop him off. And this is a kid that loves his mama. I was not happy. I felt ripped off. Okay, I'm just going to say it. I felt ripped off. His older brothers waited till they were 19 or older to move out. This kid barely turns 18. And here we are standing in his dorm room. And I thought, I don't know if he's ready. I don't know if he's ready. We barely did any curriculum. And here he's standing at a private university. How on earth is he going to thrive? And I overhear him. He's on the rowing crew. So he was recruited to row for a private university. And he's standing with his crew, which is the name of a rowing team. And one of the kids is saying, oh man, I got to take public speaking and I'm just going to tank. And my son, Stephen, our son, Craig and Bekki Sayler's son, Stephen, says, no, I won awards in public speaking. He goes, each one of us is good at something. If every one of us leans into what we love and what we're good at and we help each other, we're all going to do just fine. And standing in his dorm room, I let out a big, he's going to be fine. I can tell you, and I'll kind of wrap up and close with this. Homeschooling is a long journey. It's a marathon, right? It's not a sprint. Each and every one of your kids is going to be different. Each and every season of homeschool is going to be different. Kindergarten, very different than 7th grade or that whatever age that is, 13. Very different. So each one of your kids is different. Each season of homeschooling is different. And the way that you measure success in homeschool is different than the way that they measure success in the world, right? You're looking at your child and you're watching for twinkle in their eye, delight in their smile, making sure that they're loving what they're doing and that they're moving forward. But you're also equipping them for life by teaching them life skills of manners and um, compassion and kindness and responsibility and diligence. And so at first, they may be like my sons. They may be slower than their peers at first. They might not read at 4 years old. They might be like our youngest son that didn't read till he was 10. And you might look at yourself in the mirror and you might make the mistake of saying, you're not doing a good job. And I'm here to tell you that is not the truth. Okay. You do what's best for your child, you do what's best for your family, and you lean into learning, but make your master goals the priority. Make the character and the heart of your children, the priority. Don't lose yourself along the way, and don't neglect your marriage along the way. I could do a whole nother thing on that. Okay. Lots of lessons, and I didn't do it well all the way through. At this side of the journey, I'm very thankful. I'm thankful for my husband being determined enough to say, try it. Try it for a year. If you don't like it, we can do something else. I'm thankful for the opportunity that I've been able to teach and exist and mingle with people of all different types of homeschool. It puts me in a unique position now where I'm so thankful because as a homeschool life coach, I'm able to merge into people's life with the perspective of somebody that's seen all of these different things, right? I've had my hands on and my eyes on so much of the curriculum that's out there. I've seen the beauty of co-ops and classes. I've seen the stress of standardized tests and benchmarks and curriculum scope and sequences and trying to figure it out. I've seen how hard homeschool can be and how beautiful homeschool can be. It's just an amazing journey. So that's kind of it. I think it would be fun to have conversations like this where I can interview other homeschoolers. And I would love for you to consider reaching out and saying, hey, I'd be willing to hang out with you on the camera. We won't talk as long. This has gone a little bit over 45 minutes. We'll 15, 30 minutes of just sharing your homeschool journey. It gives light and hope to others when they can see and hear what the reality of homeschooling is. There's a lot of critics out there. I was just talking to a mama the other day, and she's going to be joining our life coaching program. And she was saying, what do I do? What do I do with my critics? She's like, I live in a family that's all academic, professors and teachers and educators and administrators, and they don't understand homeschooling. There's all kinds. So it helps to be able to hear other people's stories because you are able to glean wisdom and move faster because you don't have to make the same mistakes that people like me made along the way. It's why I do what I do. It's why my husband and I do what we do with Homeschooling Olympians. And anyway, that's it. I hope that you will consider joining me on a soon to be future opportunity like this. Please make sure that you grab the Breaking the Chains of Curriculum resource. The link is at the bottom in the descriptions. And I hope you have a wonderful, happy homeschool day.